Hey folks, oh shit, let me get straight now. Hey folks, yeah, it's Sunday morning, about 8:48 I believe, or 8:49. I don't have to work today, so thank goodness for that. But I thought I'd come on here and, well, talk about basically, kind of talk about something that, I did a two-part video on it. You've heard the Schleg Daddy talk about it. You've heard the Lex Man, anybody from any kind of wrestling source talk about it. You've read the spoilers and everything. But here's where things start to get really interesting. Now, I mentioned in my two-part video where I mentioned that this invasion with GFW and TNA does not make any sense. And, I'm not the only one that agrees with that. I mean, off the OTR Central did, Schleg Daddy did a video on that too. But here's some more interesting news. Now, I did this on my iPod, but I'm probably going to delete that because I want to use some of the space to kind of record a little bit of the church sermon today. That's usually what I do when I go to church. I kind of get my iPod out, not this, but my iPod, and put it either in my pocket or to the side or somewhere and try to get the vocals of church. Anyway, like I said, a lot of people, I did this originally on my iPod, but a lot of people have always questioned why this invasion was happening when one doesn't have television yet and one is barely holding on to their television deal by a very thin string. But then I read this article, and if I can pull it up here I will. I read this article. I read this article, and it's about Jeff Jarrett and John Gaborick. As it states here on ringsidenews.com, if I can pull it up, as well as some other sites, butting heads over the invasion angle. No, literally, that's what it says. It says Jeff Jarrett and John Gaborick butting heads over invasion angle. Now, this was according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which a lot of people sometimes can take with a grain of salt, if you will. But this is what it says, and I quote. This is by Steve Carrier. This is posted by Steve Carrier a few days ago. He states, and I quote, TNA has already finished recording segments well into October for the planned invasion angle, or for the planned invasion storyline with Global Force Wrestling, and is reportedly done with the angle altogether. And he continues, and I quote, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Jeff Jarrett and John Gaborick were not getting along on how the angle should be booked. And that was the main reason for the quick blow-off to end the storyline. The report says that things between Jarrett and Gaborick weren't exactly smooth, nor were the ideas each had on how to approach the angle. Okay, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Let me reread this. It says, the report says that things between Jarrett and Gabork weren't exactly smooth, nor were the ideas each had on how to approach the angle were that similar. There's no word on the future relationship between TNA and Global Force Wrestling. Now, when I read that, and I'm sure some of you have read it too, if not just listened to what I said, for when you hear that, it, depending on who you side with, it sounds like ego got the best of both. Hear me out. See, if you follow TNA or any wrestling promotion that's done some kind of an invasion angle over the course of its history, you usually know that in the end, if planned right, if done right, the promotion that's being invaded is the ones that usually come out on top to end the invasion, to end the storyline. Like I said, if done right. Hold on for a sec. Sorry about that. Had to let the cat in the garage. But like I said, if done right, the promotion that's getting invaded usually comes out on top. And if you've been following TNA, anytime they've had some kind of invasion or hostile takeover or attempted coup, if you will, of the company, whether it's from an outside faction, like let's say the lame-ass attempt with probably the worst faction in history, Aces and Eights, to, their, problems with, like, let's say, the main event mafia, World Elite, Planet Jarrett, you name it, Immortal, if you will. Immortal, if you will. Let's take a look at all that. Depending on how you feel, heck, even, like I say, Immortal and, Main Event Mafia, whatever. Usually TNA at the end of all it comes out on top. Well, apparently, as you all know, if you've read the spoilers, I've heard people like me talking and talking about it, you pretty much know that TNA, spoilers again, if you will, has come out on top of this angle. Yeah. They came out on top. So, the question though is, what happened between Jarrett and Gabork that didn't allow this angle to probably go to maybe Bound for Glory? I mean, I look at it this way. True, you may not be doing so well as a company, but if you still have the resources, to go and book a 3,500 seat arena for the biggest show of the year, for your biggest show of the year, in North Carolina. Like I said, for the biggest show of the year, then why can't you at least attempt to try to push something that you think's going to help help probably get you some momentum again, and in the process help get another promotion noticed, why can't you try to at least push it till then? Why can't you hold off your lethal lockdown match till then? You know? And this is where I think the whole butting of heads came around because of ego. Now, some might defend Jeff Jarrett and say, well, maybe he wanted GFW to look stronger because they're the more up-and-coming promotion. They've got a majority, the majority of the roster is younger than a majority of the roster on TNA. Some might say that. Some might say that John Gaborik, by defending him, they might say, well, he has the right to be angry. You know, who does Jeff Jarrett think he is coming back into this company and using it just to self-promote his own new promotion, his own new company? What right, does he have? So I can only assume I can only assume, in my opinion, that those were one of the main reasons, if not several of the main reasons, Jarrett and Gaborik butted heads. Because if they could not get along with how it was going to be planned and booked, what ideas could go, which ideas could go, which ideas can be used and couldn't be used. If they just basically couldn't collaborate on a semi-decent invasion angle, then pretty much what everybody felt about this from the beginning was true. This was an invasion angle that was doomed from the start. It was doomed from the start. And it's an invasion angle that if I was TNA and I was hoping to maybe land another television deal down the line, I would have waited till at least I had television and GFW had television. I would have done that. But apparently they didn't. And when you have this being reported, that these two, that Jarrett and Gaborik, who obviously probably were good friends in the past, are now not getting along and butting heads over how an invasion angle should go. That doesn't sit right. Now, because it does, I will say this, it does answer the question as to why the invasion angle ended the way it did. Why they didn't wait until Bound for Glory to finish it off. It shows you that basically TNA doesn't know how to really book. I'm not trying to defend Jeff or anything, but I guarantee that if Gaborik would have just sat back, listened to what Jeff had to say, and maybe said, okay, that might work, we can do that. Because Jarrett has more experience in wrestling, whether you like the guy or not, than Gaborik does, obviously. Because yes, I understand you want to make your company that you're representing, you're working for, look good and everything, that's fine. And again, maybe it was ego. But I think in a sense, maybe Jeff, this is just my opinion, maybe he felt that GFW has to look strong. And if you read the spoilers, for certain segments and matches, they did. Certain matches and segments, they did. But I think, honestly, in my opinion, maybe what Jeff wanted to do was drag it to Bound for Glory and allow GFW to be the more dominant, factor or faction or promotion. Basically promotion. Make them look more dominant than TNA. Make it look like TNA is not going to be able to fight back or win the battle. And then culminate it at Bound for Glory with your lethal lockdown. And there you go. Easy as pie. Easy as pie. But yet, are they doing that? Did they do that? No. Because their egos, and obviously Gaborik maybe being, like I said, maybe feeling as though it's insulting that someone like Jeff Jarrett, who yes indeed co-founded TNA with his father, is now coming back and promoting another company he's co-founded with his wife. and again, some people might defend Gaboric and say that he has the right because all Jeff is doing is using TNA as an infomercial, as a tool to promote his promotion. And some might defend Jeff and say, look, you can't blame the guy for doing that. Yes, he's done a television taping or two, but he's trying to get noticed. He's trying to get people, networks out there to notice GFW, to probably take a chance on Amped, if you will. That's what he's trying to do, and you can't blame him for that. But maybe you also have people defending Jeff and saying, look, he has more experience in this business. He knows probably how to do the invasion angle better, and maybe he wanted GFW to look dominant so that TNA could come back like the David versus Goliath story and defeat GFW. Just saying. Again, those are just my opinions on how each side could be defending one or the other. But there is one thing, like I've been mentioning, that I think does put fault on both sides, and that is ego. The egos clashed too much because one wanted to do one thing, one wanted to do the other, and the egos just could not put their egos aside to agree on these certain things that could really help this invasion. They didn't. It was the egos that clashed. And like I said, you could have certain people defending either Gaboric or Jarrett and saying, why one was right and why one was right and the other was in the wrong. But still, it doesn't make a good excuse. It's no excuse, basically. I mean, if you're a pro wrestling promotion and you're trying to save what dignity you have left and maybe try to change the mind of the channel, of the network that's going to toss you out by the end of the year along with Ring of Honor, then you put your ego aside and you do what's right. You do what you need to do. You listen to those that maybe have been in the business on how to do certain things, whether it's Jarrett, whether it's Al Snow, or Paul, whether it's Al Snow or Paul Kane, Simon Diamond, if you will. It doesn't matter. The thing is, you put your ego aside. And if you're Jeff Jarrett and you're trying to, not only probably help this company in return for what they did for you, because it was your original baby, but at the same time try to get people aware of your company, then you need to put your ego aside as well and say, okay, what can I do not only to get people to notice GFW, but to also help TNA stay afloat? You need to put ego aside. You can't let the egos clash. And I think that's what caused this invasion angle behind the scenes and in front of the camera to end so quickly. It was ego. If they would have just worked together, put those egos aside, depending on who was in the right and who was in the wrong, this invasion angle, I think, could have lasted to at least Bound for Glory. Maybe even to the end of the year. Who knows? But it was because of ego that it didn't. So, that's just my opinion on it. What do you guys think? Do you think it was ego that ruined this invasion? Do you think it was ego behind the scenes that ruined this invasion angle, the potential that it had between W and TNA? Let me know what you guys think. I'm out.